Hi, welcome back to See The Counsellor. Let's get straight into the video. So what the hell is a drama triangle? So the drama triangle is essentially a triangle of conflict, and it usually involves three people, and as weird as it sounds, the three positions are interchangeable. So you could be the victim, and you could easily become the perpetrator, and you could become the rescuer. So the drama triangle was created by a man called Stephen Cartman in 1963. And he created it as a social display of conflict, which has three roles, and all three roles are ineffective, and all the three roles further perpetuate the conflict, and the goal is to break out of it, otherwise the conflict will continue. So let's start at the top, and I'm sure as I speak you'll identify yourself, and I know that I take the role of the rescuer a lot of the time. So a rescuer is the person who is like the hero. They usually are the person that the victim can lean on, and you know, sometimes the rescuer tends to feel a bit of an ego boost because, you know, someone needs them and they can be the one to fix it all, and they're the solver, the problem solver, but obviously that's not beneficial to anyone in the triangle at all. The reason why the role of a rescuer is dangerous, or it's not as good as it sounds, is because the person who's the rescuer is always putting the victim first. They're always thinking of other people first, putting the needs of the victim first, and when they don't provide a solution or give help or a listening ear, they tend to start feeling guilty, and this becomes emotionally draining over time when you're constantly having to rescue someone, and especially when you give advice that they choose not to listen to. Then it becomes a bit daunting, like, I keep helping you, I keep giving you advice, but you still come back with the same problem over and over again. It becomes draining. And the reason why it's also bad is that it helps the victim to continue to be dependent. The victim remains in a dependent state where they continue to feel sorry for themselves, and they continue to be helpless because they think that the rescuer can fix all their problems, and the rescuer accepts it. So an example of this is like, if the victim happens to call, they'll drop everything they're doing, answer the phone call. The victim needs help with something, they'll drop whatever they're doing and attend to their need. Or whenever the victim needs help with something, they feel bad to say no, so they will always do whatever the victim asks them to do. And I've seen myself do that, and I don't know if you are a rescuer, but let's move on to the next part of the triangle. So as I mentioned before, the victim is usually someone who's very helpless, they feel trapped, they feel powerless, and they usually tend to put all their responsibility on other people, in this case the rescuer. They don't take responsibility for their actions, they always feel sorry for themselves, and they will rarely ever be able to fix their own problems, and they will always look to other people to fix things for them. Well, in this case, the rescuer. Whenever something happens with a prosecutor, this person will always run to the rescuer and complain, rant, vent, cry, whatever it may be, and not take care of the situation themselves, because in their mind they think they're too powerless, they think that they're not capable of solving their own problem, they think that they're not capable of standing up for themselves, they're afraid to speak up, or they choose not to speak up, whichever it may be. As I've described it, you can already see why being the victim in the conflict situation is not good either, because as a person you should be able to speak up for yourself, stand up for yourself when it matters and when it's appropriate to. And in this case, it makes a person very emotionally dependent on the rescuer, and they don't take care of themselves, they neglect themselves and expect other people to basically baby them through any kind of conflict, which is not healthy. And then lastly, we have the prosecutor, who is somebody who is not necessarily the cause of the conflict, but they are someone who is obviously labelled and seen as the prosecutor by the victim. They might be very strict, controlling, they might be a bit of a bully, they might be a very nasty critic, like a very strict parent or something. So they're not necessarily like, you know, doing something, but in the mind of the victim, they are the ones that are causing the problem, which is not necessarily true. So the prosecutor will normally oppress the victim, criticize the victim, or bully the victim verbally or maybe mentally, psychologically, and they don't give a solution when they criticize. They'll just criticize and leave it there, but they won't offer a solution. So the conflict continues. So they'll just complain, criticize, oppress, but won't even give like a solution to that. Like, you're really bad at cooking, maybe you should try this. You're really bad at this, but you could try that, and they don't do that. So normally they tend to be, like I said, very critical, so they're good at finding fault in others. They like things done a certain way sometimes, or they'll just be very miserable, very pessimistic. Not to say that every pessimistic person is a prosecutor in a drama triangle, but naturally so, because they tend to be very negative. So to make things just a little bit more confusing, yes, the roles can switch very easily. Sometimes the rescuer can easily become the prosecutor if they don't side with the victim, or if they decide to take a step back, they might be seen as the prosecutor now, because the victim is like, well, why are you not helping me? Like, what have I done? Suddenly they're the prosecutor. The victim can sometimes become the prosecutor. The roles can switch very easily, and the roles can switch within the same dynamic of the same three people, or it can change when you're in different scenarios. In one drama triangle, you might be the rescuer. In another drama triangle, you might be the prosecutor. So it changes and is confusing, but the goal is to get out of the drama triangle, because when you stay in those positions, it perpetuates the continuation of the drama triangle, and it perpetuates the conflict, and the conflict never comes to an end. So I'm going to use a classic example from Horrid Henry, Perfect Peter, Horrid Henry, and their mum. There's a very clear drama triangle between the three of them. So I'm going to insert a clip and then explain to you guys what it is that you can see.
Don't be Horrid Henry. Henry! Come on! Henry, what is it, Ron? These socks are dirty. So they need to go in the laundry basket. So that's your job, Henry. Right, Henry, that's it. I want all these socks sorted and declared by the time we get back. No rest, Henry, or else. Or else what, Mum? No TV for a week. Here, and that's right. This time I mean it, Henry.
So as we saw from the clip, Perfect Peter tends to be the victim, Horrid Henry is always the prosecutor, and the mum is always the rescuer to Perfect Peter. Whenever something happens, Henry does something that Peter doesn't like or that upsets Peter, instead of dealing with himself or talking to Henry about it and dealing with it between him and Henry, what he does is he runs to his mum. He acts as if he's powerless and he can't stop Henry from doing or saying what Henry does, and instead of fighting for himself, he runs to his mum, and his mum will criticize Henry. So the mum will be the rescuer for Peter. The mum will comfort Peter, make him feel loved, and then ignore Henry and tell Henry that he's horrid, but offer no solution to the problem. That's it, there's no solution offered, and then it happens over and over again, and it happens in a lot of families, especially between siblings and a parent. So now I'm going to talk about how you can get out of the drama triangle. So I guess like the first step to really coming out of the drama triangle is recognizing which position you play in the drama triangle. Are you the prosecutor, the victim, or the rescuer? And then once you're aware, then you can start making an effort to get out of it. So one of the hardest positions I think to get out of is the rescuer position, because when the victim comes to you, you feel like, I can help them, why not help them? But like I said, you're not really helping them, you're just perpetuating their sense of helplessness and their lack of confidence to stand up for themselves. So the best thing you can do is take a step back from always being on call, always being available to help the victim, taking a step back. So if they call, don't always pick up. If they come to you with their issue, don't try to fix it. Sometimes just listen. Listening can help them to vent, and then instead of giving them a solution over and over again, which frustrates you because they don't listen to your advice, just listen. But then at the same time, if you find that it keeps going, the best next thing to do would be to give the victim something that can equip them to look after themselves and take care of themselves. So when they come to you with an issue and a problem, give them a way out. Give them something that will empower them. Equip them to stand on their own. If it's money that they need to go somewhere, if it's a book that might help them, if it's a podcast that might help them, if it's a daily routine that might help them, if it's a product that might help them, give them something that will help them to take care of themselves and stand up on their own 2 feet and have the confidence to be able to get away from the prosecutor. And if all else fails, try and point them to therapy, because of course we love to help, you know, our friends and families as much as we can, but there comes a point when it's not helpful for them or for us. So sometimes the next best thing to do would be to just point them to therapy. Okay, how do you come out of the prosecutor role? So first of all, look within yourself. Realize why you are so critical, why you are a bully if you are. Realize why you are so intimidating to others. And instead of using your voice and your power to oppress and to intimidate others, use your voice and your power to challenge people to being better and stronger. The victim, empower the victim, challenge the victim positively. And when you criticize, provide constructive criticism. Don't just tell the person that they're not good at something, or they should do this and they should do that. Tell them how and why. Empower the victim instead of putting them down. Instead of putting them down, give them something to empower them, challenge them positively and gently, and, you know, don't be so critical. Try not to be so critical. Try not to be so intimidating, because as a prosecutor, I believe there might be some sort of hurt within yourself that you're now putting out to others, or maybe you grew up being criticized all your life, so it's all you know, and this is how you communicate when you're in a conflict. You point to the other person and you you criticize and intimidate others. So maybe you learned it growing up, but now that you are aware of it, it's something that you can work on and something that you can remove from your way of communicating with others during a conflict. So it's going to take a lot to unlearn those things that you learned, criticizing all the time and seeing the bad in things and seeing the bad in people, but it will help in the long term so that your conflicts can be handled a lot easier. So if you are the victim, you have to find a way to empower yourself. Learn to believe in yourself, learn to realize that you are in control of your life and that you can help yourself and that you are capable of being in charge and being assertive. Practice being assertive, whether that's looking in the mirror and telling yourself that you are able, and, you know, find a way to increase your self-esteem and your confidence and to speak up. Not many people like conflict. Conflict is not enjoyable, conflict is not comfortable, it makes people uneasy, but it helps a lot to be able to handle it, because conflict will come, it's a part of life. It's just better to learn how to deal with conflict in a way that works for you. Another thing is practice finding solutions to your own problems. That person that you always run to in the middle of a conflict or an issue, try not to pick up the phone or try not to call them as soon as something happens. Just try and find the solution yourself. You may want to vent. I'm not saying you can't go and vent or complain about it, but I'm saying try not to always put the blame and the responsibility on other people, the rescuer in this case. Try to leave that person alone and find a way to overcome it yourself. Deal with the prosecutor on your own. If it's a safe and healthy environment to do so, try and do it yourself. As a victim, I want you to find a way to come out of the mindset that you think you're powerless and you're hopeless and you're trapped in this situation. You are able, you can help yourself, you are confident enough, you are strong enough. It just takes a change in your mentality and your behavior. Even if it means sitting up a bit taller, holding your head up high, you know, and smiling and taking a deep breath and going out there and telling yourself that you can do it and that you are powerful. If that's what it takes, then do that. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in next week's video at 12 PM as per usual. Bye.